Hello, my friends, and welcome. I don't know why I'm speaking in an accent, but today we have a long video. My apologies. Because of this video being so long, I decided not to script any of it. So if it sounds a little unscripted, that's because it is a little unscripted. And yeah, my apologies. This video took so long to get out. It took over 40 hours to build this thing. And it's for a class competition, so I hope you like it. I started off with the concept art and a list of the materials. I then started putting the foam together with some plain old hot glue. Then I put two pieces of cardboard together to form this big old platform-like thing, and my hair gets in the shot. And as you can see, I formed this little cliff, and this section pops off to put the platform in between. As I was, always remember to wear a respirator whenever you're carving out stuff with a hot wire. The foam fumes are really bad for you. It's, in general, just bad for your lungs. As I was kind of carving this, I had that second section on top, so that way it was all even, and I tried to give it as unique of a cliff look as I could. And then I went in with the knife part and started adding texture. I'm kind of new to it, so it doesn't look the greatest, and of course, because of where I decided to put the camera, my hair was in the shot a lot, and I'm sorry about that. Again, lots of little lines to try and form this rock texture. Not my best work, and considering I'm pretty new to making that texture, I think I did an alright job with it, I think. And I like the way it came out at the end. I then decided to test whether I wanted to use tinfoil or a rock to form the rocky texture, and I eventually decided to kind of just use a mix of both, rolling them on along the foam, which can be easily imprinted, formed this nice rocky texture to give it, again, a rock texture on the cliff. I started to cut out this little piece here, which I probably should have cut off a slice from that. This piece that I am currently making platform I made earlier to form a little chain, kind of lower section. I ended up removing it in the final. The cut diorama some depth in this, that way it wasn't all flat and on one surface. Didn't have a very good way to attach the chain, and I think in general this decision definitely makes it look a whole lot better. I added this little strip of foam to give it that extra little section, and then I glued it to this lower part of the platform here. This build is supposed to be kind of built, look like it's built from scraps, so to kind of signify that piece together with a bunch of different little scraps and such, I took a bunch of small pieces of cardstock and corrugated paper and that really thin foam there to form it. And then it was time to glue the, after I primed everything, I decided to glue down that base with the epoxy, and holy crap, this is a pain. And I'm looking and realizing that I did this really awkwardly. Something went wrong with the filming there. I put this big old book on it to hold it down. You can see these little channels I carved out here. Those are going to eventually hold the switch, wires, and battery. Using some super glue, which was a little bit more difficult than I would have liked it to be, to get into this little hole I drilled out into the wooden base. I put an acrylic rod in there, and then I further attached it with some UV resin. Be careful when working with UV light, guys, it is bad for your eyes. And then did a quick dry brush and a purpley wash before I started adding clouds to this base. I like adding the fog. It's working with polyfill it's a lot of fun. It's a really, really lot of fun. It's just fun to mess around with. It's a fun texture, and it's really fluffy. I love fluffy. You can kind of see in this little clip here from one of the vlogs that it is poofy. Then it was time to break out the airbrush, which I used to prime all of the little market stalls, which I made some off camera because I was too lazy to bother recording it. And here's all 11 of them. In the final rendition, I only put 10 on there. I painted on all of them. I painted that little section there kind of brown, and whilst I'm painting, because painting is boring, I'm going to talk about kind of the lore of this thing. So these are the floating markets of the Rift. So far we have had one other diorama that is located at the Rift so far and an official video. There is another one that I'm working on, a short story for it, that takes place at the floating markets. It is sadly not appearing in this video though. So the floating markets are these, as it's a giant marketplace with hundreds of stalls everywhere, and it serves as kind of a pit stop for salvage crews to sell their goods, as well as purchase new supplies and kind of get all the things they need. It's one of the most important places in the Rift, and almost every story that will be taking place in the Rift will in some way, shape, or form lead back to this location. So this is a pretty important kind of piece. I like to make small things for these dioramas, and I wish I had gotten the chance to make a lot more. Just had the time and resources to do it. But as you can see, there's a little pan, and then using a sponge and some oil paint that's kind of clumpy, I was able to make these cute little, I say cute, quote unquote, these little rust effects in there. Sorry, microphone. Then I added, with some wire and cotton balls, this little smoke, which also got removed. It was too big for the box that this thing was located in. Similar to a common occurrence in all of them is painting that base at the bottom a wooden color, and then I had used toilet paper, which I had coated in Elmer's glue to make that fabric-y texture. This market stall is a little bit special. It has a cover on it. This was a way to get around having to make as much details, because detailing is kind of a pain. As an added, speaking of details, as an added detail, I decided to put some graffiti-like art on the cover of the stall. That seems like something that would be there. It took me a really long time to find the edge of this wire. I believe that is sped up to about 6 times speed before I actually found it. And using some pliers, I'm making these little shelf-like holders here, and I have 5 of them in my hand there. I put them in here, and there's some corrugated cardboard in there to rest in them. And then using some paper, I started to make these tiny little books. I made 5 of them. This one here is a little bit different from the rest. This one's got a little latch on it, but there's the rest of the books. Here's me adding the latch to this little guy. Then I painted it brown. It's supposed to be this little leather wrapped book. And then put a little dot for the latch with a mini brush. Here are the rest of the books in place, as well as me clumsily putting this book in place. The only other thing that annoys me more than making all of the tiny details is wiring. I hate it. It sucks, especially when it doesn't go the way you want. Right here I'm wiring the battery connector to the switch, and it is very clearly being a little bit of a pain. I used some shrink wrap, which was a little bit too big for these wires to hold it, and then mixed some black paint in with maybe a large amount of water, probably a little bit too much water and paint, both, and mixed it around. Before grabbing the giant platform, which has similar stuff, I forgot to create the montage of adding all of the little rivets, but all of those pieces have a rivet. And then I used this wash and a paper towel to add some more depth to this. And like I said, I added little rivets to every single one of these little plates. And did it with the big one. And here's me quickly trying to figure out where I'm going to put it before I marked where I want the lights, the 3 lighted stalls to be, and where the holes for that are going to go. And then it was on to the very fun process of putting these pieces on. Here are the wires. As you can see, there's a lot of wire. Then I attached this platform into place, which was a little bit of a pain, took a hot minute. Before gluing it in place permanently. Those toothpicks are there to help align all of the layers together, so that way it all fits seamlessly. Then came the tedious and annoying task of gluing these rods into place with this glue, which was by far one of the most annoying parts of this project. These acrylic rods were too thin and really flimsy for what I was working with, and were just an all-around pain in the butt. Once that platform was in place, I quickly, simply just to keep everything as organized as possible, threaded the wires through the holes in the directions I thought they needed to go. I was wrong. Whenever I kind of got into the full wiring of this build, I 100% wired this whole thing backwards. You can't see it now, and I'll probably mention it again later, but just missed a lot of stuff. I used some UV resin to attach that in place. And you can see my face there. Then it was time to attach the lower platform into place. Not my favorite part. It's definitely annoying to put all together. The nice part is after kind of this section, everything starts to move a whole lot faster. Once everything had been painted, it was really quick and simple to get everything the way I wanted it to go. Once again, I'm putting these pieces on here, these glue onto these acrylic rods before I finally fix this platform into place. You can tell I'm concentrating as I work because my mouth is a little bit open, which tends to happen because I don't breathe through my nose very well. And oftentimes, if I'm not explicitly focusing on breathing through my nose, I oftentimes will breathe through my mouth. Here I am still. Putting this platform on was just a whole adventure. This build took nearly 40 hours to make, and these platforms were very tedious and annoying. Every single part of this build was tedious and annoying. By far the largest and longest build I have to date. And there I am once more with the UV resin, just kind of putting it on there to give it that extra little bit of safety. And then here's the platform. It's all put together. All of the wires are there. Then using that same kind of foam safe super glue. It's not actually super glue, and it's called Quick Fix, but it takes like 24 hours to fully cure. And I smeared it around there before I finally added that big platform there. Then I decided to put, same with whenever I originally glued that bottom part, I fixated the thing in place with some books. And here's a little bit of an interesting story. As I was pulling this book off, I found an old letter that my grandfather had given to my grandmother, which definitely caused me to get a little sidetracked. Now it's time to go through, get all these wires together. And this is one of those instances where my head gets in the way a lot. I'm sorry. Here's me soldering it in. This one is the library, little bookstore. Wiring these into place was a little bit annoying, but in the end it wasn't too bad. It could have been so much worse. And it was a very tight squeeze with that, with the shrink wrap. I thought it was a pretty genius move here. I used that chimney there to hide the wire, and I think it looked really good. Here is me after I had wired everything, and you can see as I rapidly flick them that it did not work. The camera angle I had couldn't display that, and there's my hair in the way as I try to figure out why it's not working. The reason why it wasn't working is because I had the directions wrong, but I eventually managed to get it working. I almost gave up with the wiring because of that, because I couldn't figure out why, but I pushed through. Then using some watered down white glue and as well as a little bit of black paint, I put it there. Then I used my airbrush to paint the wires to disguise them a little. And I decided to make this little stop motion to make this deck, which I plopped on there. And the last part was to add all of the little details, all the little plants, the chimney, which eventually got removed, and then it was on to the glamour shots. Really quickly, I would like to point out that I intended to have a portion of this video where I essentially am kind of going over what I didn't like about this build, and there is a lot of it given how long this build took. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of it. So I'm probably going to release that section as a separate video. Until then, I mostly just thought the painting was a little bit smudgy. It makes sense in world, but for a diorama, it doesn't look that great. However, other than that, I kind of liked it. I hope you feel the same. Let me know next what you would like me to design and create, and I'll look into it. I do have 3 other videos in the process, not counting me complaining about this build. And if you're interested in watching those, you should subscribe or at least bookmark my channel so you know who I am. And I hope you all have a fantastic time. If you liked this video and aren't impatient and don't want to wait for me to release the next ones, please go check out the other ones. And if you like those, consider subscribing. That is all. And goodbye. Look at how cute she is. Look at how adorable this little creature is. This is Penguin. She's so small and fluffy.